Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our third panel of the Sunday, Spreading the Word. I think we can all agree that having a great comic is one thing, but if nobody knows about it, well, you've got a bit of a problem. I'd like to apologise on behalf of Jade Sarson, who was going to be one of our panellists today. Sadly, Jade has had some quite significant train problems coming in today. So, ably stepping in at the last minute to replace her, we have Lauren. I think that deserves a round of applause. I can see PJ giving me the evil eye at the back because he didn't get a round of applause for stepping in at the last minute.
You're great. You're great.
Don't pander to him. Don't pander. Also, of course, joined again by Jenny, who shared all her insight yesterday, and
apparently scared some people as well. I'm really sorry about that.
A bit of fear is good. A bit of fear can focus mind. And the lovable Vince Hunt. So, by way of introduction, could you each tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Okay, I'm Lauren Womack. I make a comic called Pure of Heart. That's in print and online as well. Is that?
Absolutely fine.
I'm Jen. I'm a self-published comic creator, and I work full-time in the indie scene right now, where I am making webcomics, and I'm making fantasy comics, and steampunk comics, and sci-fi comics, and space opera comics, and I also make porn.
That's the same intro you had yesterday, but
Yep.
it's so good, isn't it?
It's your elevator pitch.
It gets the point across.
Yeah. I'm Vince. I make and publish my own comics, namely The Red Mask from Mars, and I also host a podcast about indie comics called The Awesome Comics Podcast. There you go.
Well, it's a familiar question now to anyone who's been here for more than one panel, but I do like to know a little bit about your history of comics, each of you, and how you found yourself on this crazy path. So, Lauren, when did it all begin for you?
Okay, so when I was a kid, obviously I read the Beano and stuff like that. Then when I was a teenager, it's a bit of an odd story. So when the Pokemon anime came on TV, I'd never seen anime or manga or anything like that before. It's just like, this is such a cool style. And then that got me like going to comic shops and just buying loads of manga, like really random ones. Accidentally bought a few porn mangas. And that got me started drawing. Then I didn't really think of like doing anything more than just treating it as a hobby for years, and then after university I did a biology degree which didn't go anywhere, but towards the end of my degree the Bristol Comic Forum started, and then I actually started meeting creators, and that sort of pushed me to start trying to make my own stuff, and it was a steep learning curve, but it eventually got to the point I can actually make stuff that people understand.
Can I also just leap in and say, as a lapsed biologist who turned to comics, it's always nice to meet a...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
At the comic forum, there were loads of people who did biology degrees as well.
What's it about biology that makes you go, nah, I'm going to do comics instead? I can't deal with this.
In the Venn diagram of life, there's an odd overlap between comic book creators and science technicians as well. It seems to be, that's how... here they are as well. About 5 in the room today. Jenny.
How did I get into comics?
Yes, what kind of sparked it for you?
Oh my God. I've always been drawing, but I'd never thought I could actually do it as a job until I moved to the UK about 13 years ago. And someone looked at my drawings and they were like, maybe you should go to uni. And I was like, what? You can go to uni for art? What's this strange world? So I went and I did an art foundation, and then I did 3 years of illustration. And while I was there, we had comic creators come in and actually talk to us about what it was like making comics. And I was like, oh my God, people do this? They actually make comics for a living? This is crazy. So I also had a chat with Paul Gravett. I'm not sure if you guys know of him as well. And he looked at my portfolio and he was like, have you thought about going to a Comic Con? And I was like, no. But then he was like, go to the Bristol Expo. So I went there, and from there, it just kind of went, just met some people, and they were like, yeah, you should totally do comics. I was okay, I'm going to do comics now. And then I just slowly started off doing it for fun, and then it kind of went part-time comics, and now slowly it's been going over to full-time comics for the last 3-4 years. So yeah, it's just been basically juggling it with a bunch of other jobs like cleaning and being a barista and other things until now.
Now look at you.
And now look at me.
Sharing a panel with the mighty Vince Hunt.
Oh.
I know, I'm so lucky.
Oh, God. My origin story is going to be pathetic compared
Go
to
on.
that after that. I grew up in the 80s. I'm an 80s child, so I always loved drawing, but I lived in a small sort of town in Dorset where comics were a faraway dream, just finding one in your newsagent. But, I grew up with like things like Thundercats and He-Man and, I'm that nerd. The toys that made us is like the made for me, that programme. So I loved all of that, but whenever I found a comic in like my local newsagent, it was gold dust. It would also mean that I would never collect a complete run of anything because it was like, oh, there's X-Men 287, and then, oh, there's X-Men 301. It's that kind of thing. So it was never consistent, but I still had the weekly sort of UK comics that fed me. So I always wanted to make comics, so much so that when I went to my school careers advisor, which I know has come up, and they say, what do you want to do for a job? And I say, I want to draw comic books. And they give you this strange look.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, right, because no one really has any concept of what that involves. Unless you're part of it, everyone looks at you like you're an alien being. Because they're like, oh, I want to be a mechanic, or I want to be a maths teacher, or, whatever it is. But then I just came in with a surefire, I want to be a comic book artist. Oh, well, you could do an art degree, because there is no direct path in it, and that's certainly what I learned. And long story short, I ended up becoming a graphic designer, and spent a good 5-10 years wanting to make a comic, but never being happy with any of the ideas I had. Everything had to be perfect. Until it was at the point where I thought, look, just make something for yourself. If you try, don't show anyone. So I made a comic for myself, and then I showed people, and they liked it, and I thought, oh, I'm going to make an actual comic, like an actual printed comic. And I was around 30 at this point when I started, and then I made that comic, got it printed. That was something off the bucket list already. And then I'd been to a couple of conventions around Bristol. Bristol was my local one. So when I went to my first Bristol convention, then the doors just blew open to this world, because I was one of these people that going around conventions, I was asking people questions, I was looking at the table, had the way they lay out the tables, and just thinking, well, I'll steal that idea, I'll steal that idea.
Good. Yeah.
So when it came to my first con, just the community that just opened up to me was absolutely phenomenal, and once you dive in, you can't get out then, and it just grabs you and you just can't get out of it, and that's led me to where I am now.
So I guess all of you have created, you've not just established yourselves as creators, you've created properties, you've created titles which people follow and enjoy. And I'm wondering, just out of interest, where do people find your comics? Now, Lauren, you mentioned it's available both in print and online.
Yeah. So my main audience is online. I'm still working on the print side. So the vast majority of my audience comes from Twitter. Also advertised a bit. And I seem to get quite a few readers on webtoons as well. But yeah, mostly Twitter.
And do you then have an online store, or at present they can read your content online?
Yeah. I've got an online store, though I haven't had much success with that. I've only sold a couple. I have more luck with getting patrons, to be honest. That's like my main source of income for my comic.
So Jenny, continuing that question, you have a lot of established work in print and online. Yes. Do you find that most of your custom comes from in person at shows? Is it entirely online? Do you direct people to a particular site or store?
Oh my God, it's so mixed. I have a lot of people just buying at conventions from me, and they will come back every year and be like, do you have a new book? So now I'm kind of going like, oh, I have to have a new book every time I'm at a convention, because otherwise they're wasting their time coming to me. But other than that, I would say that it's almost like 50-50. I sell online a lot, and I also sell at conventions, and I'm thinking of trying to get into bookshops again, but I've been kind of putting it off because I'm not sure whether I need to get ISBNs or not. And at the moment, I've been listening to some podcasts in preparation for this, and basically people are like, yes, get an ISBN because then you can be approached by like everyone and you're available everywhere and stuff like that. And I'm like, that sounds brilliant. How much is an ISBN? So I went online and checked, and it's like $200. And I'm like, I don't have that money. Oh, hello.
If anyone needs a hand in getting out ISBNs, I can help.
You help me.
It's 200 quid, but you get 10.
Okay.
You get 10 of them, and you don't have to use them all at the same time. You can just use them once.
I think if you spend 300, you get 100.
Wait, you spend £300, you get 100 ISBNs? Okay, because what I've heard is that also you have to have an ISBN for every single different issue, and if you have like an online book, that has a different ISBN to your print book, and...
You don't need them for digital because they don't do anything in the digital world. You can you can assign one if you want to, but it doesn't make any difference in digital because nobody's putting it in a library or anything. But you need them for every different one of your printed books. But if you do a hardback of the same book, that is a different ISBN. And if you do, I've changed the format now, it's a little tiny one, or that's a different ISBN. That's why you want to buy a few, like these guys are the same.
Because the thing is, I feel like my next step is to try to get into bookshops. And when I say bookshops, I mean bookshops. I like actual foils and stuff. Because I've gone into foils in Birmingham, and I saw like actual graphic novels, like just as you walk in, right in front of you, and they're all just incredible. And one of them was a graphic novel of a lady who I was on a panel with at another convention, and like she's, as far as I know, she's small press, she's self-published, she just has an ISBN, and she was like front and center in foils, like treated just as well as all these other published people, and I was like, oh my god, I need to get in on that, like quickly. Because I feel like the moment you get into the bigger shops, especially bookshops, because comics are hot shit right now. Excuse my language, but really, people are starting to realise that comics are really good.
Well, sorry, not to get too sidetracked by the ISBN comment, but Barry, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, it wasn't a question, it was more a comment. In terms of getting into bookshops, and it's how my pros into bookshop as opposed to graphic novel, but it's the same principle. When I was approaching Waterstones, what I did was I started with my local Waterstones.
Did you have an ISBN?
Yeah.
Right.
I did have an ISBN.
Okay.
But I started with my local Waterstones and spoke to the manager, gave her a copy of the book. She read the book, really enjoyed the book. That was how I then got front and centre in the store.
And you literally physically went in with your book and went, hello?
No, to begin with, I contacted her by email.
Okay, because that's what I'm wondering. I don't want to be the person who kind of bothers people, which is why I haven't really gone into like actual comic shops that much. I went into one in Leeds where I'm now based, and I was like, I don't really know what to say. So my friend who was with me basically went, hey, Jen, you do comics. Maybe you should be in a comic shop. Hint, and I'm like, oh, crap.
Did they say it exactly like that?
Pretty much. Like, it was so blatant. I was like, okay, yeah, hi, I do comics. And they were like, yeah, we'd love to see it. And then I emailed it, and I didn't hear anything back. And I was just like, is it because I did almost like a cold call, like an email kind of going, hey, please accept me?
Well,
or is it better to do it in person because then you're literally in front of them, or is that too pushy?
No, I think it's a bit of both. I think it's about what you feel more confident with as well, because if you're not a confident person going in and speaking to someone, then you can do yourself a disservice. You're not selling yourself in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Because if you're great at doing emails, or if you feel that's a bit of it will give you the chance to kind of put together a well-crafted email that you can send to, which is what I did. And then when she responded, I was able to then go in and see her. And then
if they don't respond, would you then go in?
I didn't, but I did chase. But because I was able to get into one branch of Waterstones, it kind of opened the door for me to contact the other branches to sort of say, hey, it's this local branch, would you be interested in taking it on, and sort of building it up from there.
And again, Waterstones and foils and all these like lovely I wouldn't say indie bookshops, but like pretty bookshops, they love comics. So if we as small press people can get in there and be like next to the big boys, then like that would be really good. I think, because we can't sell ourselves enough. Like we've only one person really, at least I am. Like I don't have a team behind me.
You don't? Oh,
I don't. No, I don't. I'm just doing all this on my own.
Well, Jenny, just to latch onto something you said there, which is interesting, because you mentioned, like you said, you didn't want to bother people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's like the whole ethos of kind of promoting your work, or maybe like promoting your work well, is to bother people, but in the least obtrusive way possible. I mean,
and selling stuff as well. You don't want to oversell something, because then people are like, ugh. Yeah. But you also don't want to undersell, because then you come off as like you don't know your own product, and it's just the balancing act, really.
Sorry, Lauren.
Sorry. One thing I've found works is a lot of comic shops will have like a small press section, so I just go in and see if they've got one, and if they do, it's like, they'd be fine me asking.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Just to ask you to put your other hat on now as a kind of podcaster, but the Awesome Comics podcast, you must get a lot of content sent your way from people trying to spread the word about their books. Is that a bit overwhelming? What stands out as good marketing? It
can be, and certainly it was overwhelming to begin with, because the show is literally... It's almost like a talk down the pub. I just want to talk to creators, and when creators are talking about their comic book and their work, I don't see it as, it's not a sales platform. That's what I don't view it as that. But if a creator comes on and people listen to them and like them, people will buy their work. And we've been fortunate enough that our listeners have then purchased a lot of the books from creators that we talk about, or very fortunate. But the emails we get, all of a sudden I was getting free comics, and 8-year-old me would just be like, "You live in the dream."
Yes.
And most of the time it is. The quality is varying. It's naturally going to be up and down. And I read most of the emails. I'm not saying I'm snowed under with emails all the time. And some of them jump to the pack, and you don't have time to read them all. Like, I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing, this is not a job. I'm doing it just because. So if I read it and I like it, I'll talk about it on the show and I'll recommend it. But I am aware sometimes when I get the emails that are copy and paste jobs. I know Barry spoke about it on the panel yesterday. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yes.
Eons ago.
Eons, so long ago. But you can tell that the marketing spiel of someone who's just found, right, I want to sell my comic. Let's look at the list of avenues of people that do it and just do an email blast. That may work for some people. It doesn't work for me. If they mention my name or just the podcast, they don't necessarily have to be a listener. That I don't enforce that. But if they write a good email, and sometimes I've had emails from like bigger creators that sort of say, "I love this episode you did about such and such," and immediately that ticks a box. I'm like, you've listened. You know what the show is. So you're open to it, and you know how we work. So I'll read stuff then, and I've found some absolute gold in that email. But to your point, it is a bit overwhelming sometimes. You get so much, and I've got a full-time job as well. I can't read it all.
Well, going back to all three of you now as creators, and I think we may have a kind of spectrum here, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but Vince, the Red Mask from Mars, your predominant sales platform is physical copies.
Yes.
Jenny, you have kind of a toe in both worlds.
Yeah.
And Lauren, you say you're working on print, but predominantly at the moment, would I be right in saying your webcomic it's a webcomic, it's online. So I guess looking at the three of you then as our chart of web versus print, promoting yourself today, spreading the word about your comic, do you need a web presence?
I do, yeah.
And is that a web presence as in yourself as a creator, or is it, Jenny, you've seen both worlds. Like, do you need a web comic?
I would say yes. Like, if you like comics and you want to get into comics, please try to do webcomic, because it's really, not only is it like a test for yourself to see if you actually can do a comic, because you actually have to keep to like a schedule and stuff, but it's also really nice to kind of get it out there, and it's just for fun, just to see if you like it. And then in the future, you can go back and be like, I did that. And if it happens to go really well for some reason and you don't get sick of it, And then you could continue doing the story, and then slowly you can get it into print. And if you slowly get like a community or like a fan base around it as well, they might be open to buying the print book. That's why Skull is still going. Like I'm working on the 4th issue now, and it's been going for like 7-8 years. A long time, basically. And it wasn't meant to be anything like that. Like, I wanted it to be a book, but I didn't think that I could, really. But then it's just because I kept it going and because people liked it, then it sort of went from the web to the print world. But I also got my patrons through Skull to start off. So really, the webcomic gave me both Patreon as like a main income, and it gave me convention sales. So it's like, honestly, doing a webcomic is like the best thing you can do, in my humble opinion.
Well, thanks. I mean, in the world of kind of physical comic book sales, it shows. How did you find people discovered or returned, if you will, to the Red Mask from Mars?
For me, at the moment, predominantly, it's a convention presence. You know, from the first time I ever had the comic book, I'm there, I'm interacting with people, and it's that interaction I have from the table, and then they normally come back for issue 2. Do you know what I mean? That the returning customers are the best and the most important customer, because everyone can have a gangbusters issue 1, you know, and that can give you a false sense of confidence, because you think this is going to be golden all the way through. But comics are a land of diminishing returns as well, because your issue 2 isn't going to sell as well as your issue 1. Probably. Just, but I hate to be the downer. I was going to be so positive when I was on it.
I know, right?
No, but you have to be prepared for that. But so when you do get those people coming back to buy your issue 2s and your issue 3s, it's just the best feeling. And of course, when they then ask for issue 4 and you still haven't finished it yet, it's going to happen. It is. I'm working on it. But it's they're the best, and because then you gain not a relationship. You're not starting a relationship. Yeah. Do you want to move in together? No,
like a fan base.
Yeah, a fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fan base, and it really. But it's, for me, it's like face to face. But my sort of.
You're also really good at selling at conventions, though.
Am I?
Yeah. Have you not noticed?
No.
Like,
I mean, I will. If I'm going to be horribly honest, my pitching game has,
really?
It's taken a dive. I don't know why. Like the first convention, I wasn't hard selling because the pitches.
Yeah, you shouldn't.
But I was like, I had that Sunny D kind of energy inside me. But then when you're on like your 7th convention of like the last convention that you'll be pushing issue 1. And you've seen it so much, you go from like, check this out, to have a look through.
Enjoy. I hope you like it.
Yeah, but that's the nature of the beast. And then issue 2 came out, and I was back on cloud 9 again. It's but my journey has taken a weird left turn since I actually started doing something else. Since I started doing the podcast. Because I had this trajectory where I was doing all of these issues, and it was going in one path. And then I just wanted to talk about comics more with people like you and people like everyone in this room. So I decided to start this little show, and then it just went off in a completely different. I became a different kind of personality then. I became known to a lot more people that I have no clue who these people are when they come up to my table, because they don't have a photo on their Twitter. Yeah. So they're like, oh, Vince, and they talk to me like they know me, because I forget that people listen to my voice. And
you need to have little avatars, pictures.
Yes,
of Twitter.
Avatar badges. If you learn anything from this week, it's avatar badges, because at conventions we have no idea who you are. So I'm getting back into that sort of creator trajectory now. I'm sort of not writing the ship, but I started an anthology comic through the podcast as well. But now I'm trying to get back into the avenues of being the creator. I'm here in a creator presence. I'm not here as a journo, because I'm not that in any way, shape or form. Anyone who knows me will tell you that.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, because I imagine like anyone's first show setting up a table at a convention would be quite a scary prospect. Lauren, I mean, is it similar when you launch a comic online? I mean, all that creativity is suddenly out in the world. I mean, how do you suddenly have a rush of people coming in to look at it? Or?
No, you don't. So it was more a gradual process for me. So I made a comic before and was putting that on DeviantArt, and no one really paid attention to that. And then I kind of got the hang of it, and I was just making very short comics and putting them on Twitter, and they were going down well. And then I was like, I could do something with this. So I tried to build them together into a longer arc. And then when I had a bit of a backlog up, I was like, I made an announcement basically on Twitter, and that got a bit of attention. But like, if you've got a Twitter community, people will like retweet it, and you get their audience. And then I put it on Tapas just to see if people would read it.
Calm down, Jen. It's okay.
I'm saying nothing.
Yeah, I need to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to tell you what I think.
And just so I had a platform to show it, and people seemed interested, so I was like, okay, I'm going to build a website and do this properly. But yeah, it's more a gradual thing.
What about yourself, Jen? Did the audience for your comic come overnight, or was it?
Oh my God, no. I mean, so I still feel like nobody knows who I am, and that's cool, honestly. Because like, I think I said yesterday that you only need about, 500 to 1,000 true fans, and then you're fine. Because there are loads of people who just make comics, and they're just making a living, and they don't even have a convention presence because they can get all the money through Patreon or Kickstarters and stuff. And they're all independent, and they're just like getting on with it because they have been, talented and lucky enough to be noticed online, and then people pledge, maybe $1 or something towards them. And if you have enough people doing that, then you don't have to run off to the convention and stuff if you don't want to. I'm not there yet at all.
No, but it's very interesting you say that, because I've often felt that it would be a dream to be able to go to conventions simply because I want to and I want to engage with a fan base. The idea that you need to, even if the returns are good, that can be quite
I know
exhausting.
people who have to do conventions to earn money for their bills and their rent. And if they don't do all the conventions, they don't get their rent paid. And they basically hate conventions now because because it's so exhausting, and they have to do it all the time.
So much weight is put on every convention performance, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and also because like you have to be on all the time, and you have to like try to sell to people, and you're not comfortable selling. Like I'm not comfortable selling stuff, and I've had to work through underselling myself. So instead of like just going, I have a comic, it's not very good, but you can look at it. I started as that, and now I'm just like, hey, I do comics, it's great, yay, look at my stuff if you like, please touch things, and then they go, oh wow, she's actually excited about this.
I've never said that behind my
I think it works for me, because I'm just like, touch things, I also do porn, yay. And they're like, wow, this is different, so it's fine. Like,
you got to make sure you get them in that order. Right?
Oh yeah,
I do porn.
Also, if you do smart at conventions, like put them on the side and put them, I learned this the hard way, like put them slightly back a bit so the children looking at them go, oh, that's all colourful and cute, I'm going to touch that, and then they open it up and it's like the first thing they see is titties. So like, don't do that.
You have to clearly label your
I have like a big sign that just says adult content, and like even my Genspiration, which was another webcomic I did, which is like quite cute, it's really rude. So I've had to push that back as well, because kids look in and they're like, oh, this is definitely for me, yay, and I'm just like, no, it's really not for you. So how you do your actual table is quite important. So you make sure that you have things that children should not reach, just pull that back a little bit, and have everything clearly labeled as well. And I found that having like stickers with prices on each thing works better than having like a price list, which I've had before, and nobody looks at the price list. They always ask like, oh, so how much is this? And I'm like, oh, it's
they
right
never do they?
It's right over there.
I spend ages on my price list all
just
the time.
a really pretty price list, and I bought the thing to put it in, and it all stands up, and it's really nice eye height and stuff, and no one looks at it.
No
so
one
I'm like,
looks at it.
But the other thing with selling at conventions as well, I don't know if I'm the only one who cares about this, but tablecloths are really nice. So like if you have a really nice tablecloth, people are just like, ooh. At least some people, and it's really cheap as well. You can just go to like your local fabric shop and just get 3 meters of whatever cloth you think looks pretty. And I got one which is like purple and glittery. So when people come to my table, they're just like, okay, because I don't think anyone else has that yet. And if you're like if you've got money and you're really like into branding, you can like brand your own tablecloth and have that. People be like, wow, she's totally legit. So
it's interesting you mentioned like standing out, because I think something that's come up this weekend is the idea that it's never been a better time for creating things, as in the tools at
definitely.
your disposal are great. Now, the flip side of that is that everybody is creating things.
Yeah.
So how do you stand out? And is there a danger of resorting to gimmicks, be it online or in presence?
I think gimmicks and the hard sell, they can get you a reputation, and certainly may not be with the people that are just shopping, just there to shop, but certainly your table neighbours. We've all probably heard stories of, like, you've been at a convention and someone has been hard selling and trying to steal people from your table to their table, etc. I've heard horror stories. I haven't.
Or if you're, for example, selling smut and then you haven't told the organisers because you're silly, and they put you at a table next to someone who sells books for, like, children, and then 4-year-olds come up to your table because they're about to go to the other table, and then you sell no smut that day because there are only children next to your store, just things like that.
It's a difficult question. It's that if we had the answer for it, we'd all be selling out of everything. It is the question, how do you take your presence and your comic to the next step?
A banner. Sorry, this is just like another thing.
Yeah, a banner is very important.
You do a lot of things really right, though. Like, you have a banner, and, like, the way you lay out your table is really nice. And there's another thing you do, which is that you stand up, and you do that a lot of the time, which is good. If you can stand up, like, try to do that, because you're in eye level with people, and, like, if they look at you, you can just be like, hey. You don't have to hey, come to my table.
Yeah.
You can
if I'm
like,
sat down at my table, I'm either very tired or eating a pasty.
Yeah. If you're just sitting down, you can hide to eat something.
And if you're eating, someone will always come up to your table to buy something.
Best sales technique.
It's the best sales technique.
Sales technique is to be hungry and desperate.
And have, like, pastry falling out of your mouth.
God.
Lauren, arguably the online webcomic community is so much, bigger by an nth degree compared to any comic village at a show. How do you find that? How do you try to be noticed when there's so much content out there?
So basically what I did was look at the kind of people who were reading it and then try and find where they were congregating. So my comic's about werewolves, and there's a bit of a werewolf community on Twitter.
Yes.
So I used their hashtags. I sort of started Twitter just showing this community, so it sort of grew organically, and it's like, oh, my friends like the stuff my comic's about, and that also links on to furries. There's kind of overlaps, and that's a huge community, and also they're very into commissioning, which is nice.
That's
they're lovely.
That's interesting you mentioned the hashtags, though, because that's you doing research. That's not like passively waiting for people to come to you. You went and did the research and thought.
Research is a bit of a strong word. I just saw my friends doing it. It's like, oh, I'm going to get on this.
But it seems like that's a small but surely effective gesture you can do to try and reach out to people.
Yeah, I can get my most popular tweets are ones where I've joined in a hashtag.
And I think, because you've got a specific thing that your book's about and you aim it towards that audience, you're going to have that pickup. You see a lot of people doing video game style comic books. Why should they not have a table at a video game show? Do you know what I mean? I remember Mike Norton, who does Battle Pug.
Yes.
An amazing fantasy book about a giant pug dog.
It's adorable.
But he actually took his book to a dog show.
Did he?
Yeah,
That's so smart.
And he sold loads because there was nothing else like it there. So when people were like, oh, this is wonderful, it's like, oh, look at that cute dog, and he sold loads of copies of his book. So always be aware of different avenues you could possibly take that no one else is taking.
I'm currently looking to get my smut comics into women-owned sex shops and stuff in the UK. So I'm just now reaching out to be like, hey, would anyone be interested in this? And people are basically going, yeah. But again, now I'm just like, but do I have to get an ISBN first? So I'm just kind of I'm just kind of holding off on that. But yeah, you don't have to just be in the comic sphere. You can just reach out to other things. So, like you said, to a dog show, and that could work out really well.
If you've got a space comic, a dog
Don't go to a dog show.
Would just be weird.
Interesting. I was wondering what you all thought about the idea of creator as currency. By which I mean, I saw someone commented online earlier this year that as a creator, as an artist, they found it exhausting that they couldn't just make art. They felt that in order to exist online nowadays, you had to put yourself out there. You had to be a person. You yourself had to be a brand that people could buy into. Now, Jenny, I know you've done a lot of streaming. Yeah. You've done your kind of Twitch work. And you mentioned your budgie yesterday and how your fans...
He's more popular than I am. No one cares about me.
Well, I was wondering, I mean, like, and, you know, for all of you with your different perspectives, like, do you feel you have to put your personality out there? You can't just be behind the art.
You can put your personality out there, and you don't have to put your personal life out there. People think social media, it has to be me. They have to see what I'm going to eat for lunch or what I'm going to do this. No, if you... And certainly, there are people that have an online presence who make comics, and they could have quite an unprofessional, you know, if you look at their Twitter stream, you just think, if you were a publisher and you looked at that, if you looked at that Twitter stream, you'd be like, well, you know, why would I hire this person? But there are other people that you know, that do talk about it, you know, they separate it. I think Facebook makes that a bit much, because Facebook is, I mean, in terms of comics, I don't think it's the way to go. So if you want to have your here I am at the wedding, do that on Facebook. But everything else, if you want to make comics, I think you can have a separate social media.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like you said, having your brand and being your own brand, and it sounds quite cold, I guess, and quite commercial. But like, you have to think about the fact that if you're
Jen,
exactly. Well, I've literally now got like a necklace that says Comicatrix. That's what I am. Like, I'm just branding myself now, because why not? Yeah. But you know, you have to kind of think about the fact that if you are your own, you know, you are on your own, then you are essentially your brand. So you have to like make sure that you put yourself out there. And I think I'm lucky enough that I'm quite oversharey as a person.
But that's part of your brand, isn't it? I mean,
exactly. So it all depends on what you are as a person. I happen to be someone who loves to go on Twitter and talk about what I eat and things like that. I literally took a photo of my vegan sandwich this morning and like put that on Twitter, and people follow me for that.
But that ties into the work you do, though, isn't it?
It does. It's like, I'm about to go to the comic summit. Yeah. Here's a sandwich, and then like people go, "Wow, sandwich, comic summit." You know. Do
you get more responses for the sandwich?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what it is about that. Like, I will put my artwork on Twitch and I'll be like drawing live, which people really like to see. But then I also have a little budgie cam on the side, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's a budgie," and I'm there like doing fully painted watercolor pages of this fantasy comic, and I'm just like trying to make it look quite cool and impressive. And everyone's like, "Can the budgie can he eat some lettuce or something now, please?" And I'm just like, "Come on." But I've gotten sales out of that, so I've been joking that I'm now pimping out my budgie for my own comic work, and it works, you know.
So I mean, Lauren, like, I mean, when you're updating your comic online. What is your web presence when you're doing that? Is it just, here's a new page of a story you love, or here's a new page of a story you love by Lauren, who you know?
What I'd normally do is just go on Twitter and say new comic page, and then I have like a screenshot of one of the panels just to get people clicking, and one thing I forgot to mention is Top Webcomics is really good if you make a webcomic for driving traffic. So every day I just post like a black and white panel and say, on Twitter, and say, if you vote for me on Top Webcomics, you get to see this panel in colour. And sometimes I can come up with some clever quip about the panel, which tends to get more reaction, but I can't always do that. I think it's more just, so I've got a pinned tweet at the top of my Twitter that has a link to my webcomic, and then I just like, I guess I think of most of the time Twitter just being like down the pub and hanging out and chatting to my friends, and then people see me appear, and then if they go on my profile, they can find my comic. I've
noticed that a lot of webcomic creators, they're a lot quieter on Twitter. They're very steadily sort of, here's a link to the new strip, here's a link to the new strip, because they're building that following and they're going to, that's how they do it. But the people that are normally selling at shows, they're like, you can buy it now, here's the link. You know, and they're showing you everything. Whereas, the webcomic creators are a lot quiet, they're sort of like just slowly just
building it up.
They're still building it up.
I think if you try and do the hard sell, it doesn't seem to work on Twitter.
No. Yeah.
Well, do any of you have any experiences with advertising? Now, I know, Lauren, you've Project Wonderful
Yeah.
Something you're using. I mean, can you just explain to anyone who's not familiar with it how Project Wonderful used to work?
So it was basically like a link sharing. I'm just trying to articulate. So basically, you bid on spaces on people's websites for your banner to appear, and if you won the bid, then your banner would appear on the site. And it could be like a penny, and then you could then use. Then you could host ads on your site, and the money you raised from those ads could be used to buy ads on other sites. So it's sort of like a link sharing thing, but with a bit more money involved.
Top webcomics sounds a bit like that, in a way.
Yeah, they. Yeah, but
like
that's
banner
more
ads as
about
well?
just you can buy ad space on there as
okay.
well.
I guess to anyone visiting the website, Project Wonderful ad probably looked indistinguishable from, say, like a Google ad or
No. They tended to be for other webcomics. They were I really miss it. It was just so well targeted because it was Google ads just look like Google ads.
Everyone's got like ad blockers on now.
Yeah.
So in the end, it just wasn't worth it for people.
Oh, is that where they stopped it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So they basically went that, if no one can see these ads anyway, what's the point?
Oh, I'd get so much traffic when I put stuff on there though.
I think that's where they stopped it. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, Vince, what about you? I mean, are you happy for people to come to you when they see your work, or are you actively out there trying to snare people?
Well, I park my van in a shadowy lane. I must say, I actually work in advertising for a day-to-day job, but that doesn't mean that I have any extra tricks or tips. And it is something that I'm actively searching to get better at. I just go the standard route at the moment. I mean, one of the reasons that I actually started the podcast is I just wanted to bleed everyone dry of their information for my own personal gain.
At least you're being honest.
Well, yeah, but
You've finally blown the lid open.
finally, it's all been about me. No, but it was that because, I'm just making these little comics, but I want to get better at it. And you guys know ways of doing it better than I do. But in terms of advertising, it's such a up and down world, I think, for comics, because you have these brilliant, like Project Wonderful, which is no more now. Mm-hmm. Whenever you go on Facebook, it's constantly telling me to buy ads, which I know will do nothing.
Especially if you have one post that's just a little bit more popular than your other post, and then they
2 people read this.
and
Do
then
you want 3 people to
and
read
then
this?
they slither into your inbox and they go, "Hello there."
I guess
there's nothing worse
Do you
than
want
someone
to make
slithering
it-
into my inbox.
Yes. Do you want to just buy some more? You've got some more engagement. I'm like, no, get out.
just in the interest of market research, if anyone has had any experience of buying Facebook ad space, could you raise your hand?
Wow, really?
And if your experience of that was positive, can you raise your hand?
Okay.
Surprised. Yeah. Interesting. Just a little bit. For the benefit of the listeners at home, thousands of people raise their hands.
Million.
Word of mouth is a hugely powerful tool.
Yes.
I think.
It's the biggest one.
Yeah.
So related to what you just said, I was thinking it's particularly because of what we're doing here, all being kind of indie creators, is that one of the benefits I think we could all reap from this event and in general, when we see each other at events, is to just meet each other and then co-promotion. Some of us it's not going to work, but yours about werewolves and stuff, and mine's nothing like that. But nevertheless, the people who follow me like comics, and they know what Kickstarter is, So if you do a Kickstarter, I can say, here's the thing about werewolves. It's literally nothing to do with what I'm doing, but nevertheless, a lot of like 3,000 people, like some of them might come and back your thing.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, that's just a friend of mine.
Well,
just doing a webcomic.
That's the main thing, though.
You can say about it, and we can all do that, and all our fans will know about everybody. And I just think that'd be really helpful for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think, especially the indie scene, because we are quite small, it's just to lift each other up, because the more we kind of go, I might not be what you're looking for, but I know this person and they'll be just like exactly what you want. And then like they get a sale, and then maybe get more fans, and then more people will come in there. So like it's only good to like spread it instead of just going like, oh no, it's a competition, because it's not. It's really not. It's only gonna get better and bigger and more awesome if we just keep on like pushing each other.
And you have to push it past that glass ceiling as well, because you can have lots of sales. Like, I'm sure we've all bought books from our friends and stuff, and they're all brilliant and amazing and stuff. But for me, and I love it whenever that happens, don't get me wrong, every sale's a winner with me, but when there's someone who's come up to my table, they do not know who I am, they do not know what I've done, and they walk away with a book, that's a massive win. Because sometimes, you know, you get the sales from the people you know, and you can think, well, you know, I'm doing well, but should I count those? Because, you know, it's almost everyone's shaking each other's hands or patting themselves on the back, which is great because you're going to get the numbers, but at some point that's going to stop because all of your friends have bought the book and you've still got the book to sell. So you need to push like your brand and your book to the people beyond the bubble that we live in. And I think that's the important step that indie and small press comics has to take now, because we're at such a stage where there's so much and there's such a brilliant range of stuff out there that we need to get into the hands of the muggles that don't read comics. Get them into bookshops. Yeah. Honestly, it's.
I was just going to, conscious of time, I think we should open it up to questions. I saw there was Barry, PJ, not to ignore you. Barry, did you have a question first?
Personally, it's always fine to
No.
He's not wrong.
Do we need to give him another applause?
It was more of a point when you said about kind of the first thing is when it's someone you don't know has come to your table. But something that I sort of learned is that actually every person that comes to the table is important. Sometimes the people who actually don't buy anything don't think that's a lost sale.
No.
I'm saying it to people who haven't done this yet. Don't think it was a lost sale. I had someone who came to my table. We had a 20-minute conversation, which, as anyone knows, if you're at a table, 20 minutes talking to one person is like your entire life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the time, you've got this peripheral vision where you can see
other people come to the table and walk off. Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, they're busy.
Yeah, you're kind of thinking, okay, so I talked to Scott, and literally at the end of the conversation, he sort of said thank you and went away. Didn't buy anything. And I kind of was like, okay. But we had a really interesting conversation with him, everything about the book. He came back a year later, it was the fourth and he'd done some research online and literally went, how much? And I said, well, what would you like? How much for everything? And the table. So never think that, always engage with everyone, even though you think he's not really going to engage because you don't know.
Can I make a point on that?
Yeah, Jenny, please.
Yeah, so speaking of which, cosplayers are amazing, and don't ever think that they are there and they will never buy any of your stuff. Because basically cosplayers, when they are in cosplay, they probably don't have pockets and they're not there to buy at that very particular moment. They're just going around doing their stuff and it's all great. But if you treat them like crap and you're like, oh, they're here taking up space, they're not going to come back to your table out of cosplay when they're actually there to buy the stuff. So always make sure that the cosplayers are there and they're the uber geeks.
Especially on a 2-day show.
Oh yeah,
they'll be in costume for the first day and they won't be on the second day.
They are like the ultimate geeks. So don't ever think that they're not, because they are like, wow. So
arguably they're a better geek.
They're a better geek than all of us. So yeah, don't ever think the cosplayers are not there to buy stuff, because they totally are.
Can I just add to that as well? Is I with cosplayers as well is have nice conversations with them and all that.
Yes.
Depends on the costume. Like if you get excited about it, they remember who you are because you geeked out with them as well. So like I had, I think it was some Fire Emblem people. They came back and I completely didn't know who they were because they're out of costume, but they came back and was like, oh, you're the only one who recognises in the whole convention. And
there you go.
See? Like about 10 minutes off of me to share between friends and family.
I had a wonderful conversation with a predator. It's honestly true. It's honestly true.
Were you comparing bands?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
but the guy in the suit commissioned me to draw a picture for him. So
sorry to cut you off. I'm just thinking of time. We've got a few questions. I'll go to PJ first, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Vince, you said our guests on the show have seen sales increases. I was wondering if you've seen any impact on sales from presenting the show and mentioning your own comments at all.
I have. I've sold books because of the show, and certainly we launched an actual anthology comic.
That's really good, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You can buy it from. No, I'm not going to do that. And that followed. We launched that at True Believers in Cheltenham, and the day we launched that was the best launch day I've ever had for any work. It was the most exhausting day of my life, and I had 2 people with me helping me. But yeah, I have had sales, but also at the moment I've currently stepped back from the Red Mask, and there's going to be a second push on that when issue 4 and 5 come out later. So yeah.
Sorry to fire through these, Sarah, and then we'll go to Fumi over here. So.
Just a quick comment on the question, but I was just going to say that I think as creators supporting other creators, I think that support can take loads of different forms. So I think especially when you're at a convention and you're talking to someone, a lot of people feel obliged to buy something. And it's like, it doesn't have to be, there are loads of different ways we can help each other. It doesn't just have to be like you buy something or you retweet everything, or because it just never ends. You're going to do that for every single person. Your Twitter feed would just be full of that and you'd have everybody. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think like just helping, any way that you can help each other is good.
Yeah, just word of mouth basically.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think we have time for one more question from Fumio.
Hi. Thank you guys for doing all this. I'm from Japan, so the system is completely different.
Cool.
And it's nice to hear the cosplay things.
Yes, cosplay's awesome.
I'm a lecturer here. I'm a lecturer in illustration. So I've got a lot of students who want to do comics now, comic books. They're very familiar with it, but they just don't know how to do it yet. They haven't done the pop book or book series, or they haven't been to. They've been to conventions with those. That's it. My advice always is to, if you want to do a comic book for, let's say, final major project in your 3rd year, try to do like a 30-page book.
Yes.
Or something like that. But from your conversation, I get a big impression of a webcomic is very important to get something more quickly spreading faster. So my question is, if you're a lecturer, if you're a tutor teaching kids doing all the comic books, do you encourage them to do webcomic first, or do you encourage them to make a book like 30 page, 40 page first?
I think it depends on what they want. If they want to have an online presence and they're not too interested in the physical book, maybe be like, yeah, you can do so much online on a webcomic. But if they are more into holding physical comic books, I would really suggest giving them like the short book to finish first, and just do the whole process of having it printed and all that. Because then if they've done that once, they'll start understanding how it works.
Yeah. Because if they do a webcomic, if they head all the way down that webcomic route and then just say they want to collect it and print it, they may have done it in the DPI for web resolution.
Don't do it in DPI or 72.
You have to do high resolution for everything.
Yes.
Obviously, when it's on the web, it's not going to be high res, but just bear that in mind. I mean, they can do both. They could do a 30-page story that they're going to publish online, and then they can collect it and print it afterwards.
Yeah.
There's always that option.
It depends on what they like. Personally, I want physical comics. I don't enjoy reading webcomics as much as I enjoy actual comic books. So having like a really short one that you do from start to finish, and then you can have that as your own thing, and even then have it printed cheaply and give that out as like a business card to other people, and to publishers or whoever you want to notice you. That's a really good way of being like, look, I can finish a book. I've done this myself.
Yeah.
So
if you can finish a book, you're already there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Always start small and then go into the bigger things.
Yeah.
Don't do an epic.
Yeah.
I mean, Lauren, to get your opinion on this, if you were to kind of start afresh on a new project, do you still think you'd go down the webcomic route initially?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a good way of testing the water and seeing if people like it. But yeah, Yeah, I definitely started 300 DPI.
Don't do the other.
It's got to be Twitter, no Instagram.
Oh no.
I've never had much luck with Instagram.
Instagram is more popular among the youngsters, among the young guys.
Yeah, it's personally, I find that Twitter is better for me. But Instagram, if you've got like more of a following there, then it spreads more. But I think it depends on the algorithm. So how you get visibility and stuff. Personally,
if you want to go really off road, you do MySpace.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's just like I would say try different platforms and see which one works for you.
But not MySpace.
Don't try MySpace. But try different ones and see which ones actually work, because Instagram just doesn't seem to work for me, but Twitter works really well for me.
But I've got friends who Instagram does really they get loads and loads of traffic from Instagram, so it's just trying.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I am afraid we'll have to kind of draw this panel to a close. A massive thank you to all our panellists here. I mean, Vince, Jenny, and of course Lauren for stepping in at the last minute. If we could have a round of applause.